evening, everyone. Welcome to Lemon Live at 5. Thank you so much. As you can see, I'm not in my home studio. I'm not in the studio at all. I am actually in Midtown Manhattan. I am with Jim Acosta and Michael Cohen and let's see, Tara Setmeyer and others, Olivia Troy. We're here to, I'm helping them with they're having a no fear tour that they're starting. And so I think it was a good effort from them. So I'm here helping them out. We just got in, I just got connectivity. So I'm happy that you're here. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a great show and I think you're gonna love the person we have on. I know you're gonna love him because he's a friend of the show and he's been here before. And you guys always talk about what a great guest he is and how smart he is. So let's talk about fighting the power. When you see the thumbnail that we have now, fighting the power, there are people and there are institutions, entities, and organizations that are actually fighting back right now. They're few and far between, I believe, but they are starting to fight back, as are the people, the American people who are out on the street. They have been protesting. They have been people like Senator Cory Booker, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Bernie Sanders, who have been out doing their tour and doing their town halls as well. So good evening, welcome. Let me know where you're streaming from. Thank you for joining us again. I think you're going to enjoy the show. Harvard is one of the institutions that's hitting back. Have you all heard about what's happening at the Ivy League, this Ivy League school? Perhaps, unlike big tech, unlike all the big law firms, unlike the corporate media companies, Harvard is refusing to capitulate to the Trump administration and their autocratic moves. Let me explain. Recently, here's what the White House did. They demanded that the oldest university in the United States, that it makes changes to hiring, admissions, and teaching practices. They claim that these changes would help fight anti-Semitism on campus. Now, this is controversial. No one wants anti-Semitism or any kind of bigotry or any kind of discrimination on campus or anywhere. But the question is this too far? Are they doing this with a heavy hand, with an iron fist? They claim that these changes would help fight anti-Semitism on campus, but in reality, this would just be affirmative action for MAGA, for the movement, for MAGA movement students and MAGA movement teachers. What do you think about all this? I want you to let me know, please, in the chat. I want you to be very active with me today in this chat. And I want to introduce the person that we have on right now. But first, hold on, give me a second before we do all of that. Recently, they are demanding all this stuff, and they are withholding money. So what they're saying is Trump has threatened to withhold billions in federal funds designated for research if the school doesn't comply to this. Okay, nothing new. Since returning to power, Trump has pushed to reshape top universities by threatening to withhold their money. And remember, during all of after October 7th, there were a number of Ivy League university presidents who either left on their own accord or who were pushed out. Okay. So Harvard became the first major university to reject the administration's demands yesterday, accusing the White House of trying to, quote, take control of its community. We also have some updates on Kilmar Abrego Garcia. That case, his wife is speaking out for the first time. We have her on camera. So we've got so much to discuss. Fortunately, I have a very, very brilliant guest with me now to talk about all this. And that is one young and not only handsome, but brilliant Kahlil Greene. He's a Peabody-winning Gen Z historian and a friend of the show. Thank you, Kahlil, for joining us. And Kahlil, I know that this one is very important to you, also very personal, close to home. How are you doing? And tell me why this is so important to you.
Yeah, well, it sucks that every time I come on the show, it seems like the country has gone even further into decline. This time around, obviously, we're talking about colleges and universities. I'm a recent college graduate. I graduated from Yale University back in 2022. And while I was at university, I actually served as student body president. And I was the first Black student body president in over 318 years of history that the institution had. Yeah, so I've been one of those students that's benefited from the DEI, quote unquote DEI woke policies on college campuses. I recently was on one, so I know what it's like to actually be a student. Right now, I live about 15 minutes outside of Harvard University. All my friends are there. So being a part of this community, it feels like such an attack and so personal to have the institutions and places that I've been at become national news in the worst way because they're being attacked by an authoritarian regime that's trying to gut everything that's been beneficial about these schools. So I'm really mad. I'm really passionate about fighting against Trump. And for me, this actually goes back to 2020, where I penned an op-ed in the Washington Post when the Trump administration first sued Yale for its affirmative action policies. And with that op-ed, I argue that the Trump administration was wrong about how they perceived universities, and I still feel the same way today.
Yeah. Do we have that article? I think we have something in the chat that you...
Yeah, that's in the chat, but you can bring that up. You look up Washington Post. I'm Yale's first Black student body president. The Trump administration is wrong about our admissions, and you'll find
okay. It's in the private chat. Look it up, producers, because I would like to get that up just so we can show. In the meantime, as we're working on that, I just want to do a table setter for you so you understand the nuances of this story, and then we're going to get back to Kahlil. But here it is. This is an ABC News report on exactly what is going on at Harvard, how they're fighting back against this administration. Watch.
The Trump administration freezing more than $2 billion in federal grant money after Harvard University rejected a list of government demands, including overhauling hiring and admissions practices. Harvard, America's wealthiest university, not backing down in the face of pressure from President Trump, who is threatening to pull roughly $9 billion in federal aid unless the school makes a slew of changes to the way it's run. The administration ordering the school to report foreign students who commit conduct violations to federal authorities, submit to an audit to ensure academic departments have diverse viewpoints, and all DEI programs share hiring data with the administration, and submit to an audit of admissions data. The administration also calling for the correction of what it calls anti-Semitism on campus, an issue which Harvard says it has already taken steps to address. But in a scathing letter, the university's president blasting the administration for what he says is a violation of Harvard's First Amendment rights, writing, "No government, regardless of which party is in power, should dictate what private universities can teach, whom they can admit and hire, and which areas of study and inquiry they can pursue." This is hundreds of demonstrators gathered in Cambridge over the weekend, protesting the administration's arrests and detainments of international students.
What the university has said is, we're going to stand on our principle and our legal rights.
The school's defiance coming as President Trump squeezes Ivy League universities, some like New York's Columbia University, conceding to a list of demands after hundreds of millions of dollars in aid was paused. James, that line in the sand drawn by Harvard's president, that defiance has been met with applause here on campus by faculty and staff, and the university vowing not to surrender going forward. One of the big questions now, of course, is whether the university dips into that $50 billion plus endowment going forward to try to make up for some of that federal shortfall.
All right. Thank you for that. Okay, so here we go. Kahlil, that seems very heavy-handed there for the Trump administration to try to do. And what it means to me, it sounds really, really odd. It sounds like, I don't know, like the Iron Fist, like 1984. I mean, it's a bit too much.
Yeah, I saw the poster in the clip that actually made my history nerd senses tingle, and it said that Harvard, you remember kings, we can't go back. And for anyone who doesn't know, Harvard is older than the United States of America. When Harvard was created, we were still a British colony. We were still under a king. And it was largely a lot of these Ivy League leaders, for all their faults, that stewarded America into becoming a place where there was representation, where there was democracy, where it was representative. So to attack these universities, it makes this a very historic moment, because Trump is coming in just like a king, just like an authoritarian figure, to try to revert us back to that old, almost the monarchy that we used to live under. And I find it really, really disgusting, really scary too, especially because Columbia caved in. So, I mean, for me, I'm really happy to see Harvard stand up. My own school, Yale, I believe 900 professors sent an email and a letter to our president for her to stand up as well. And hopefully we see this as the beginning of a movement of universities actually fighting back against Trump and not letting us go back to make America great again, all the way back to the 1600s, where he wants to be the king again.
What do you think that this is? Well, there's this argument that, well, this is to stop anti-Semitism. This is to stop racism or bigotry. There was a discussion this morning on, I believe it was Morning Joe on MSNBC with Molly Jong-Fast, describing this as, she said it was thought policing. Let's watch.
In this case, it's Trump going after the elites. He knows what he's doing. Politically, it's not going to hurt him. I think these universities have enough money to cover their their legacies. They got a lot of money to handle it, so they're going to be able to take care of themselves. I don't want to be loose about this, but I think Trump targeting these universities is probably not the worst movie ever made.
I'm going to respectfully push back on this. I totally disagree. This is thought policing 101. This is not okay. The truth is, and I say this as a Jew, this is not. They are using anti-Semitism as a cloak. Right? If this administration really cared about anti-Semitism, there's a lot of stuff they could do. This is not about that. This is about targeting universities. This is about targeting speech. This is right out of an authoritarian playbook. And this is, and you know, they may say that it's one thing, but what I've been really impressed with is that we're seeing a lot of universities push back because they know this is illegal. So we have, right after Harvard did it, we saw MIT go right after that. We had already seen the president of Wesleyan, Michael Roth, do a really great job of pushing back. He was joined by the president of Amherst. There are huge numbers of academics and academic institutions that are going to push back on this because this is absolute government overreach at the highest order. It has nothing to do with anti-Semitism and everything to do with authoritarianism.
Former President.
Trump uses bigotry to get rid of democracy, that someone said in the chat. Do you agree with Molly Junk Bass that this is thought policing and it has nothing to do with anti-Semitism?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not Jewish, so I would always let Jewish people define anti-Semitism and what it is and isn't. What I will say is that I've heard the sentiments echoed by the person we just listened to happen all throughout the country amongst Jewish community leaders and professors and students. Specifically at Yale, there was a professor, his name is Naftali Kaminsky, and he was saying that it was really important for him to sign a letter alongside other Yale professors to get our president to stand up against Trump because he is a Jewish Israeli person and he feels like anti-Semitism is being weaponized, is being used as a Trojan horse for these larger conservative goals against universities. And when you look at some of the demands, it's very hard to make any connection to how it could help fight anti-Semitism when you're seeing things like banning all DEI programs, and instituting oversight boards. It just feels very authoritarian. And it's very, I think it's a huge reach to say that any of these goals are ones that would actually help anti-Semitism as it exists on campus or fight any other form of bigotry that happens on college campuses against Islamic students, against students from all types of race and backgrounds. Right now, Trump does not seem to care about that. It just seems like it's his best veneer for what he's doing, which is trying to take over these universities.
Kahlil, I'm going to put something up. This is from your Substack, and I know there's a Washington Post one, but I'll get to that one later. But it's from your Substack, and you said, my Yale professor just fled America to escape Trump. Marcy Shore taught me how to recognize authoritarianism. Now she has recognized it in Trump's America, and she is gone. Talk to me about that and why you wrote it.
Yeah, so this is an article on my Substack, which I'm very proud of. And for anyone who doesn't know, I have a Substack newsletter, comes out almost every day. It's called History Can't Hide, where I analyze modern issues through the lens of history. I'm a historian. I got a history degree from Yale. Specifically, one of the classes that I took that was one of my favorite classes was called European Intellectual History, and it was taught by Professor Marcy Shore. Now, Marcy Shore, alongside two other professors, including her husband, the famous public historian Timothy Snyder, recently left America to teach in Canada because they saw the signs of an authoritarian regime coming from the actions that Trump was making. And from their own scholarship, they use this as a sort of canary in the coal mine to say that we need to get out of here. Specifically in that class, we read a lot of authors, some who are cited at the end of this article, who are researchers specifically from Europe that did a lot of work after the Holocaust and after the rise of Nazis and after the rise of the Soviet Union to analyze how these republics, which at some point were thriving democracies even, became the regimes that they ended up becoming. And a lot of it is things that are shockingly familiar to us right now. It's the slow encroachment of targeting intellectuals and starting with removing professors who disagree with political leaders. America even had to form a committee to accept German professors who were refugees when the Nazis were rising to power because so many of them were being kicked out of their own country. It begins with targeting minorities and using them as scapegoats and further getting people to accept as normal things that we should not ever accept as normal, acceptable. And right now we're seeing that in our own country. And it's very scary that the professors who study this day in and day out left. But I think it's a warning sign to all of us. And also, quick plug, I got an A in that class. I have my screenshot from the transcript in there too. So I remember a thing or two, and it really alarms me to see what's going on in the country right now.
Oh, wait, let me see. You got your
if you
grade
scroll down on if you scroll down on it.
Oh my gosh. Well, wait, hold on. How did you get an A- in intro to writing fiction? Now that is the problem. And then you withdrew from the senior essay.
Okay, we didn't go into everything, but writing fiction was hard. I don't know. I'm just not as a creative
reading and research.
writer.
You got a pass.
Yeah, it was a pass only class. The senior essay, I did it the next semester because it was COVID and it was a horrible semester for me. But I did love that one class.
Well, congratulations. Look, you got an A's, all A's. But look, I withdrew from classes. I still have that dream that I withdrew from a class or I forgot, and I show up for the exam, and it's just crazy. So I still
absolutely, I still get it too.
That is, well, I mean, look, I can't even remember when I was in college, but I think that's a sign of imposter syndrome. They say that everyone has. But anyway, let me ask you. This isn't the first time that you have spoken out, and the reason I want to ask you this is because you saw with the Tufts University student wrote something. An op-ed in the student newspaper, and they showed up and arrested her, or at least detained her on the street. You wrote this back in, and this is for the Washington Post that you wrote an opinion. I'm Yale's first Black student body president. The Trump administration is wrong on our admissions. Now, this was during the first Trump term. Now, imagine what they're talking about now, about if they don't like what you're doing, if they think that you are some sort of criminal or whatever, they want to be able to deport Americans and without due process. That should be concerning to all of us, because you could be in that situation if this were now 2024 and you were writing something like this.
Yeah, it's very scary. I mean, the work that I do right now, I'm sure, I mean, you for sure, Don Lemon, you have a lot of things, if he really starts cracking down, that you should be worried about, but all righteous things, of course. And I mean, it is scary, but I think the more that people stand up and the more collective action we take, there's always strength in numbers. And I think that's the strategy we have to go with, whether you're a college, whether you're a private business or a law firm, or whoever you are being attacked by Trump or potentially being attacked by Trump. We just have to stick together, and it might be hard, and there might be some losses. As we're seeing, there's already human rights abuses happening from this administration, just deporting people into terrible conditions. But there really is strength in numbers, and I've been doing this for a long time. I mean, there's so many people that came before us that had to go through even worse, that were actually brutalized physically, and they survived and they withstood and they got us to where we are today. So we just have to carry that torch forward. And the least that I can do is just try to be a public leader and an intellectual, and to share knowledge with people that can hopefully let them see how they can participate in whatever small way in this resistance movement.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I want to welcome the new members as well. So thank you. Thank you, Karen White. Because of Karen White's generosity, 20 people get to become members of the Lemon Nation. So thank you. You know this now, Kahlil. You're out here in this independent journalism world, and we used to live in a whole different world with the big networks and all of that. And here we are making a huge difference here. And it's important that you support us, right?
Absolutely. Please.
Subscribe. Yeah.
Please, please, please support this channel, support my Substack, because we, at the end of the day, don't have the same relationship with the big tech companies that President Trump does. You saw all those CEOs sitting around him during the inauguration. They're quickly suppressing our type of content while at the same time elevating the most racist and terrible content. I have some articles about how right now AI memes of George Floyd's lynching are going viral on these platforms, while talking against Trump or against racism will get you suppressed. So you need to support us, please, on these independent platforms, because that's the only way we can continue.
And not only that, I mean, if you look in the streaming world, the people, those kinds of platforms, and the people who don't have to rely on facts, they get a lot of sponsorships, billionaires pouring money into their channels and into their companies, and that doesn't happen on the other side. So, Kahlil, I want you to stand by for a little bit. And speaking of, we got to take care of some business here. So I want to talk to you guys about our sponsors today, and we're so happy that they are. The Don Lemon Show is sponsored by BetterHelp. It's been sponsored by BetterHelp for over a week now. and we appreciate them sponsoring our show. You guys know how I feel about therapy. You guys know that I like to take the stigma off of it. I don't think that there's anything wrong with seeking therapy. I think mental health is important, and I also think that therapy should be accessible and affordable for everyone. It should not be like a big investment that you have to invest like a stock market or whatever, because your state of mind is really important to your physical health, and as important as your physical health, and it's important to your present and your future. It should not cost you $100 to $250 for a session. You can, with BetterHelp, you can get on average of 50% less than that. As a matter of fact, they're offering some great deals there for you to be able to get your mental health in order. With BetterHelp, you pay a flat fee for weekly sessions, saving you big on cost and on time. Therapy, as I said, should be accessible. It should not be a luxury. And with online therapy, you get quality care at a price that makes sense and can help you with anything from anxiety to everyday stress. Your mental health is worth it. I'll say it again. Your mental health is worth it. And now it is within reach. So again, I have benefited from therapy. If you have, let me know in the chat. I think that everyone should get some sort of therapy. Talk to someone. Okay. So more than 30,000 therapists they have. And globally, it is the largest online, by the way, therapy company in the world, therapy platform. They've served more than 5 million people globally. It is convenient. You can join the session with a click of a button, helping you fit therapy into your very busy life. Plus, you can switch therapists at any time, at any point. So your well-being, again, I'll say it, is worth it. BetterHelp.com/Don Lemon. You can visit BetterHelp.com/Don Lemon to get 10% off of your first month. So that means you'll save 50% and you'll get 10% more off in your first month. That's BetterHelp.com, BetterHelp.com/Don Lemon. So once again this week as well, the Don Lemon Show is brought to you by the Freedom from Religion Foundation. There you see up on your screen, ffrf.us/freedom, or text Don to 511-511. The reason that I had the sponsor on is, one, I wrote a book about religion because I was very concerned about a religious nationalist, many evangelicals trying to turn our country into a theocracy. We are a democratic republic. We're not supposed to be a theocracy. There's supposed to be a separation of church and state. And that is where the Freedom from Religion Foundation comes in. They fight to keep church and state separate, just like our founding fathers intended. You can't just back away, even if you are a believer, no matter what religion you happen to practice. You can't just back away from it, because now there are a lot of people who are trying to enforce religious nationalism into our country and even into our personal lives and into our laws and schools. So that's where the Freedom from Religion Foundation comes in. You can join by going to ffrf.us/freedom, or text my name, Don, to my first name, Don, to 511-511 to become a member today. Text Don to 511-511. Or, as I said, go to ffrf.us/freedom, because the only thing worse than someone forcing religion on you is when they do it by law. So for membership information, text Don to 511-511 today. Text fees may apply. Thank you for that. Thank you for BetterHelp, and thank you for the Freedom from Religion Foundation. We appreciate it. So Kahlil, back to our program now. I also want to, look, this story about Harvard has really, it really sort of traversed every different level of the media. Not quite, well, yes, actually in sports as well, but political, in the financial industry, all of it, right? Because there are these billion-dollar endowments that these universities have, and Donald Trump is saying, I'm going to withhold your money, billions of dollars, if you don't comply. This was on Squawk Box, and this is a conversation about a debate over Harvard and money and free speech, and I think it's very interesting. I want to get your take on it. Here it is.
Are we going to talk about this? I mean, you and I, we've all been talking about it during the break. Let's talk about it.
Because Harvard is now, so it comes down to what exactly are they asking Harvard to do? They're asking Harvard to eliminate their DEI programs, right? They're asking them to do what else? I mean, because this is where the whole anti-Semitism issue becomes the main focus. And if they're giving them government funds and saying...
Look, to me, the issue has always been about, and it's a nuanced view, violence and genuine disruption of classes, to me, is a problem, and that should be prevented.
Right.
I'm a Jew. I hate the anti-Semitism piece of this more than anything, more than anybody. Do I think that people can scream from the rooftops if they want? I hate to say that, but I think that they can. And in the same way that we think that it was not right for the Biden administration to go after the tech companies, but around whether you think it was laptops or COVID or this or that. No.
The left misses those days of controlling Facebook
No, I'm
and
saying
controlling Twitter.
And
at the time, they didn't say, don't do it.
What I'm saying is, to the extent that
So now,
if we want to be, if we're
game.
trying to have a consistent view about free speech,
But it wasn't consistent back then.
so why are we then saying it shouldn't be consistent now? My only point is, if we genuinely believe in free speech, if we're going to advocate for Elon
we're
Musk's
calling
X
whataboutism
and everything else,
instead of calling it for what it is, which is
no, you are doing
hypocrisy.
what? No, it is.
No,
This is
it's
the ultimate whataboutism.
Why didn't the left care that we couldn't read about the lab origin of Wuhan or the Biden laptop?
I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying if we believe that the government,
but you can't go back in time and decide to do it now.
You believe that
let
the government should not be involved.
You let it go back then.
What? Pause,
we believe that the government
pause. What is this guy talking about? Do you understand his argument? And I don't understand his argument.
The one in the blue or the one in the white?
One in the white. I don't understand his argument, but you can't go back in time. They said you couldn't read about Wuhan. You couldn't read about those things. Some of those things you couldn't read about on social media because they thought it was misinformation at the time. And some of it still is misinformation. But to compare it now to people genuinely being able to protest, there were lots of people who were protesting during COVID. This guy in the white shirt he makes no sense.
It's a non sequitur argument. He's saying that just because something happened means it should happen to someone else.
Let him finish it, then I'll give you'll have all the time to respond. Let's finish it though. Keep going.
Should not be involved in speech, which is what you would argue this entire election was about.
I just
right. That's what the election is about.
Choose when I decide that.
Well, no. Now you're picking and choosing. That's exactly the point.
I just want Jewish kids to be able to go to class.
I agree, but that's about disruption of classes and about violence. The idea that the government genuinely should be influencing speech, to me, is a problem.
Go on, Kahlil.
Yeah, I mean, I really like what that one guy was saying, in that if there was any rules or guidelines that would be helpful for enforcing any forms of fighting against bigotry, it would be things that protect people from physical violence, from physical harm. And that would be like the forefront of it. But obviously, the policies that Trump proposed encroach on students' free speech. It seeks to very obviously categorize any pro-Palestine movement or protest, no matter how peaceful they are, as something that should be classified as anti-Semitic and result in the punishment of students or the punishment of faculty. And oddly enough, to the point that you were making, the guy in the white shirt seems to be on board with that because he feels that some stuff was suppressed on social media during 2020. It's a very spiteful argument. It's also a very nonsensical argument. And I think if people start going down this path of really trying to escalate the tit for tat, then it'll just lead us into a dark place.
Yeah, you're way too kind. You're much kinder than I am. I think the guy in the white shirt, whose name is Joe, I think this is Joe Kieran.
Joe, okay.
And then the other one is Andrew Ross Sorkin, the guy in the blue, the one who was being sensible about it. I think it's an idiotic argument, and I think he just wants to argue about something. It's just like it's a get off my lawn, old man argument for people who don't understand the nuances of what's going on now and what happened during COVID and where we live, what the age and the era that we live in now. There's a difference between understanding that people should not be harmed physically on any college campus. People should not be prevented from going to classes on college campuses. However, it does happen. And it's an expression that is as old as time. People on college campuses have been protesting against the man, against the system forever. Even when Joe Kieran was in college, it happened. And unfortunately, sometimes those protests get in the way. It prevents people from going down this street or through this alley or this walkway. It should not happen, but it does. But that does not mean that you should thwart free speech or try to control free speech or freedom of expression on any college campus. And I believe anywhere in America. That's why I don't understand his argument. It is one that is based upon ignorance, and I think, as you said, just spite.
Yeah, I agree. I think that a lot of these arguments are based on a very distorted reality. I think one is the short-sightedness of the understanding of protests on campus, because if we compared any of the protests that we've seen in the past 2 years to even a fraction of what was happening during the Vietnam protests, like it would seem like a walk in the park, right? Like there were people got killed at Kent State, Columbia, even like the encampments there and the sit-ins that they had where they took over they blockaded the actual buildings. Those were a lot more rough. And funny enough, ironically enough, if you took a tour of Columbia 3 years ago, the students and the faculty would praise those protests. They would say, these brave students were fighting against the unjust Vietnam War, which nowadays everyone realizes Vietnam was insane. So it feels really hypocritical. It also feels very short-sighted. And also, once again, it's a distortion of what was happening on campus. I mean, of course, you will find, I'm not going to deny that you will find moments where Jewish students were recording and trying to get to a point and being held back, and for sure that's something that the university should address, but you'll also find something that none of the Trump administration wants to talk about, which are entire religious ceremonies and gatherings and protest movements and events led by Jewish community members, led by entire organizations. There's one at Yale specifically called Jews for Ceasefire. A lot of Jewish students were a part of these protest movements and are some of the people being attacked right now, whether it be on social media or being brutalized by the police at the time. And I think all of this depends on distorting that reality and making it seem like this is a very binary black and white. All of the students protesting for Palestine were just completely anti-Semitic and need to be taken from campus.
Yeah, look, I wrote something about this, and I said that about what's happening on college campuses, and I said that now the same people who are advocating for free speech and who used to fight the system back in the day are now saying people who they disagree with, it's disruption rather than a freedom of expression. And so, and that should be concerning, especially considering when you see people being rounded up just because they wrote something. If you look at what that young lady, I forget what her name is, you may remember, and producers remind me, the young lady who, was approached by these ICE officers on the street. If you actually,
it was in Boston. It was in my city.
If you look at what she read, it was Tufts, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you look at what she read, it wasn't that outrageous. She said that she wanted her school to divest from Israel. Okay, fine. But that is not saying I want October 7th to happen or anything like that. There are people who have written much worse and stronger op-eds for newspapers, whether it be their student newspaper or the what was it, the one that you were for? Was it the New York Times or the
Washington Post? Mm-hmm.
Washington Post. I mean, I think yours was harsher on the Trump administration than hers was actually on her university.
Don't rat me out. Don't put me on the target list, please.
No, but I mean, yours. I'm not saying it wasn't rational and based in fact.
Yeah.
I just thought that you were tough, as you should be, and everyone should be tough in their opposition. I think.
I agree. No, I mean, I agree, and I think that's why everyone's calling the alarm on the free speech argument. It's like sometimes there are horrible people that went through the Columbia protests. Some of them a part of like the New York community that were saying like very vile, horrible things. And there are some people that just supported Palestine and were calling out anti-Semitism, but wrote opinions about the policy that they thought that should be pushed forward, or that they saw on their phones a child being burned alive and they were against the United States funding the weapons that were used to do so. And that's a very reasonable take to have. And to like sort of try to ban all of that speech is just very bizarre. And I think that's why everyone's sounding the alarm, because it goes way beyond any rational response to real anti-Semitism.
Let's talk about, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. His wife is speaking out for the first time, and I want everyone to hear it. Here it is.
After his disappearance, and I stand before you filled with spirit that refuses to bring down. I will not stop fighting until I see my husband alive. Kilmar, if you can hear me, stay strong. God hasn't forgotten about you. Our children are asking, when would you come home? And I pray for the day I tell them the time and date that you'll return. As we continue through Holy Week, my heart aches for my husband. who should have been here leading our Easter prayers. Instead, I find myself pleading with the Trump administration and the Bukele administration to stop playing political games with the life of Kilmar. Our family is torn apart during this scary time, and our children miss their dad so much. Despite the challenges we continue to face with the U.S. and the Salvadorian government, I hope that the strength of faith and the resilience within us will keep us standing after all the punches we continue to receive. Our ability to fight back against these governments are testimonies to the spirit of fight and restraint that God has given us. We will continue standing strong, and we will never give up on you, Kilmar.
Have you been following this story?
I have. It's very bleak and dark. It's very scary. I think when you combine what happened to this family and that he was deported, leaving behind his wife and children, and then also with the imagery of the prison that he's allegedly at right now, it just seems like a hellish circumstance for any individual to go through, especially one who was innocent and especially one who left El Salvador escaping the gang that he's now in prison with. So that allegedly, if he's even there, because we are wondering where he actually is, but if he's back in El Salvador, it's because he originally left El Salvador to escape MS-13, which is a gang in El Salvador, came to America, and now they're deporting him back, alleging that he's a part of that same gang. So now they put him in the prison where all of those gang members are. So if he was actually trying to escape them, now they threw him into the den with the wolves.
Why are you saying if he's actually there? Because there are some people who have sort of a very dire conception, or at least idea, about where he is or what may have happened to him.
Yeah, so my gut feelings, I actually grew up, I was telling you earlier, I grew up in a place with a lot of El Salvadorians, Montgomery County, Maryland. And a lot of them came because of the wars, that United States funded wars, but not only the wars, but also the gangs that were created in El Salvador in like the 80s and 90s. And one of those gangs is MS-13, which has a presence in El Salvador and in Maryland. And they're a hard gang, right? Like that's the quote unquote reason that El Salvador used to be the murder capital of the world as a country. So if he was really trying to escape them and he was a target and his family was a target and he's there right now with all of the gang members in the prison, it's just not likely that he would last long with what I know and what generally people know about the gang, let alone in the transport. There could have been something that happened. And the president, the governor of El Salvador itself is also known for human rights abuses in their prisons. So there's so many factors, so many players that could have just killed him. And there's also not strong evidence that he's still alive to begin with.
Peter, the stuff that you sent me, producer Peter, that you were thinking me about Rumesa Ozturk, is that for the wife? Is that what you're talking about?
No,
I think that's the person that was detained.
That was a person. That was the person. Yeah. Okay.
She was the tough student who was detained. I was just adding that she had her first day in court yesterday.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
Now, and I got it now. So, and she said that ICE agents would not treat her asthma in Louisiana, and that they tore off her hijab, and they testified in court, Kahlil.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, all these things are tied together, right? Like it's that poem, I'm sure, or quote that I'm sure you could bring up, or someone else could quote better than me, but like, they came for this group, I didn't say anything, they came for the next group.
Jews,
so exactly. So it just feels like obviously it starts with the pro-Palestinian groups, with Mahmoud Khalil, I believe, and then it goes on to undocumented immigrants, and those were like the two big groups. I'm sure next will be like trans people, and so on and so forth. And I think the tactics that they're using are the tactics of the worst regimes in history, disappearing people, sending them to camps in other countries with no human rights guarantees whatsoever, not telling anyone where they are. It's a very scary start, and it's only 3 months into his presidency.
Man, it's only 80 some days, right?
Yeah.
And here we are. Kahlil, I want to play some other stuff for you. Let me see what I have here, because when I read that, it just makes me sad when I hear stuff like that. And then you have the White House press secretary coming out every single day, making up every single excuse, demonizing Garcia and others, and then also demonizing the press for doing its job. Here it is.
On that note, the Democrat and media outrage over the deportation of Abrego Garcia, an MS-13 El Salvadorian illegal alien criminal who is hiding in Maryland, has been nothing short of despicable. Based on the sensationalism of many of the people in this room, you would think we deported a candidate for Father of the Year. That's because, unfortunately, many in this country care more about this quote-unquote Maryland father, a legal alien MS-13 gang member, than a Maryland mother and an American citizen who was brutally murdered at the hands of a different illegal alien. Of course, I am referring to Rachel Morin. And if you didn't see yesterday, a Maryland jury found illegal alien Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez guilty of murdering Rachel Morin in August of 2023.
Oh, what does that have to do with Garcia? But go on.
Yeah, like where's the logic? Like it's collective punishment. It's there's a term. I guess like racial profile. Like how do you align someone else's murder of a random person with this person just because of the same ethnicity? They're from the same country. That's exactly. It's so basic. Like I mean, I have the People's History of the United States behind me by Howard Zinn. It's just like the same playbook for horrible racism and violence in America all over again. It feels like we learned this in kindergarten, or not kindergarten, but like middle school, about the Japanese internment and the Holocaust. And that's why my professor left. I guess it was just so obvious for her that the same things are happening again. And it should be obvious for everyone, hopefully.
Well, maybe you learned it in kindergarten. I would not be shocked if you were reading Howard Zinn.
No, not kindergarten.
Kindergarten. But I will say, listen, the proof. Do we have this? Do we have Joyce Vance from this morning? If we do, let's get it, because Joyce Vance is telling you. I like to give proof. I like to give, as I say, receipts about what's going on. Joyce Vance said yesterday it was this morning on Morning Joe, I believe, about the proof that they have, and it's really no proof. They believe that he had a Chicago Bears, I believe, or Chicago, I don't know if it's Bulls, Chicago Bulls baseball cap, that he had tattoos, and that there was an anonymous source in New York, or claimed that in New York that he was a leader or he was a member of MS-13, but he had never been to New York. Here's Joyce Vance. Watch this.
Yeah, I think that that's exactly right, because what happens here if the Trump administration walks away from this one and Abrego Garcia stays in that terrorist confinement center in El Salvador is, what does the next case look like? And Trump says he's interested in homegrowns, which I take to mean American citizens. And this is with Donald Trump describing who is a criminal, because as you say, Abrego Garcia had a withholding order, which meant he couldn't be deported from the United States. You know, right now the administration wants to say that he's a member of MS-13. I went back and looked at the original pleadings, and the evidence that the administrative immigration judge rejected against him was this. He had a Chicago Bulls t-shirt and a hat. And an anonymous informant said that he had been a member of MS-13 West, which is a faction of the gang in New York City, where Abrego Garcia had never lived. So the immigration judge rejected that and issued that order that said he could not be returned to El Salvador, a country that he had left, by the way, because he was being subjected to threats, including death threats from a gang. That means the government can now decide that anyone is a terrorist if you take this to extremes, right? They could say that you or I had done something wrong, and so long as they could get us out of the country and into a prison in El Salvador or someplace else before a court in the United States could hold a hearing, then they can make this argument, well, oopsie, right? That's the tweet that Bukele had previously issued when they were first accused of spiriting Americans, or rather spiriting deportees out of this country to El Salvador's prison. He tweeted, oopsie, too late. And they could say that about any of this if the Supreme Court can't draw the line here.
Joyce Vance,
There
thank
you go.
very much for coming on
And
this
that's
morning.
the evidence. Now, what do you think with that evidence? Shouldn't they bring the guy back? Shouldn't they be compelled to bring him back? Not just.
I mean, they should be, but they can't. I mean, at the end of the day, that's why even the Supreme Court, with what, like half of them are Trump's besties, and appointed to be conservatives. I think it was unanimous that they voted that
9-0.
Yeah, 9-0. So literally unanimous decision that what they did was unethical, wrong, legally. I'm not sure if the ruling was that he needed to come back, but that definitely that it was wrong. And at the end of the day, when you see something like this, it leads us to a constitutional crisis because the judiciary decides one thing, both at the local, district, and all the way up to the Supreme Court. And the people who are supposed to enforce that, I mean, it's the president himself, and he's not going to do it. He's, I think, made a clear stance on that. And the only time that we've seen constitutional crises like this before have been at the worst moments of American history. I believe the most prominent being when Andrew Jackson refused an order to protect Native Americans, leading to the Trail of Tears. So when there's a constitutional crisis like this, bad things happen, and Trump seems to be diving headfirst into it because he really doesn't care.
The question that they have been fighting over, and that's a word definition, is effectuate versus facilitate. And that's what this argument is over now. They said we have to facilitate, but that doesn't mean effectuate. And so anyways, that's what they're hanging their hats on. We'll see. But basically, I don't know if it really matters because I think they're defying the courts anyways, whether it's a Supreme Court.
Yeah, they don't care what the word is.
They don't really care, right? So thank you. Look, thank you for joining us. Okay, Kahlil, I hope did you get everything out that you wanted to say about Harvard? Because I know you're passionate about it.
I mean, yeah, I feel like I did. Everyone just pay attention. I'm going to plug my Substack one more time. I'll be writing an article about it. I'll try to interview some students, get to campus, which once again is not too far from me. But at the end of the day, yeah, there's a fun one I made about how Gen Z is just really racist online, for example. But follow my work, because at the end of I think at the end, students and administrators and leaders and everyone coming together is how we'll beat Trump.
Yeah. Kahlil Greene, thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it. Go on to
thank you for having me.
Thank you. Absolutely. So go on to Kahlil's Substack. What an amazing young man. And also check ours out. In order to check ours out, just go to donlemon.com. It'll take you straight to our Substack. As I told you, I'm here for the No Fear Tour. Here's a Substack right here. I'm going to write about something this evening that I'll drop right after I do this No Fear Tour. We'll talk about it. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to write about, so you'll have to just check it out to figure it out. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. And also, I did not get to the TikTok folks today. I couldn't get my TikTok camera to work, so sorry. It would not go on the internet. Anyways, so thank you for joining us. I'm so glad that you are here. Make sure that you become a member as well. So I want to welcome all of our new members who joined while we were on the show and just today. So Talking About, thank you so much for becoming part of the Elimination. Joanna Arias, thank you for becoming part of the Elimination. Welcome An to to the Elimination. Welcome Toy, and welcome to all of our new members. Asante Gregory, it's all of you. Okay, I got to get out there. I have 2 minutes before I have to be on stage and speaking and presentable and know what I'm talking about. So as I always say, before I let you go, turn the TV off. Thanks everyone for watching. Your support means the world to us. So make sure you hit the like button and you subscribe to our channel to make sure that you never ever miss a video. We're live every day, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We drop even more content at 2 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Eastern. And if you want more Don Lemon Show content, we'd love for you to become a member of the Lemon community, where you will receive access to special community posts. You'll get exclusive content and members-only live shows. So head over to our channel page or click the join button on this video. Again, thank you for watching. We appreciate your love and your support.